Guys, gals, and pals, welcome back to Paint and Talk episode 24. It feels so insane to say that. I feel like I've been saying that almost every episode for a while now, but it really does feel insane to say episode 24 of this. Like, I never thought, I just couldn't imagine it, you know what I mean, when we started. But as always, you guys know the drill. I hope you had an amazing 24 hours since the last time I've seen you. I hope it was not only better than yesterday, but like way better. But you know what that means? Tomorrow's probably not going to be quite as good. So I think we should brace ourselves for that, be realistic about things. But I hope the 24 hours before this have been amazing. I myself, I've been doing pretty well. I want to say I've been better than yesterday. Not like by a large margin, but like a little better. I have this problem where I keep falling asleep on the floor. But outside of that, I've been doing pretty well. Today I want to talk about a topic that might be, I don't want to say it's like out there. I think it's something that we all can relate to and understand very easily. But I will say it's probably not, it's maybe a little bit more abstract than the typical Paint and Talk topic that I've been choosing so far, and that's existentialism. I find existentialism to be really interesting because it's one of those things that, like, whether we call ourselves existentialists or not, expect that to happen a lot. I'm sure I'll be getting tongue-tied more often than not this episode with that long word, but I think existentialism is very interesting because it's one of those things that, like, whether we call ourselves existentialists or not, we all, like, kind of just agree with it. Like, not explicitly, but if you go up to someone and go, like, life is, like, inherently meaningless, there's no inherent meaning in life, most people will be like, yeah, and then maybe they'll have their own meaning, you know, or something along those lines. But unless you're religious at this point, most people have kind of accepted existentialism as almost, not fact, but like a common occurrence, you know what I mean? Life is meaningless, and that makes sense to most people. And I think that's why I'm so interested in existentialism. Also because of my own personal relationship with the subject. I want to say that I have, like, an okay understanding of philosophy. Like, I wouldn't say I'm exactly a genius or a savant at it, to be honest, but like I like reading it, you know. And I started with existentialism. Existentialism was where I started my readings with. It was either Nietzsche or Camus that I read first. I know I read The Stranger before anything else, but like I don't know if I got into Camus' philosophy, because The Stranger is one of those books that you can really read whether you're understanding what Camus is saying or not. You can just read it for the story, and I think that might be what I did. Yeah, and I think I read Nietzsche first, but either way, existentialism was kind of my gateway into philosophy. I think that's fairly common. I mean, I know a lot of people are getting into it now through Stoicism, which I'm not a fan of personally, which I would love to do. That might be a Paint and Talk in its own right. I think that'd be a very interesting thing to get into, because I think Stoicism might just be the most annoying thing of all time. Not Stoicism like in the Marcus Aurelius, the guy, the Roman emperor guy. He wrote Meditations. I don't think Stoicism is annoying when he's doing it. I'm talking more so about, like, modern Stoicism, often dubbed as, like, broicism, of, like, don't be emotional, buy a Ferrari, because that's totally what the Stoics would say in the year 2025. They'd be all about those Ferraris, and they would not care in the slightest about, you know, leading a good life anymore. It'd just be Ferrari talk. But that's a whole other topic for another day. I know a lot of people are getting into philosophy that way, though, which I ultimately think is great. I think that just, like, I think everyone should read philosophy. I think it's awesome. If you're watching this and you don't read a lot of philosophy, totally understandable. I know not everyone loves it, but if you haven't given it a shot, I fully encourage you to, because it's something that's, like, and I say this in one of my other videos, but I do genuinely believe this. Like, I do think philosophy is one of those strange things where, like, it is very capable of changing your perspective on things super frequently. You know, maybe if you read 20 fiction books a year, like 2 of them might really stick with you, and, like, you'll remember lines, and, like, the philosophy of it you'll really empathize with. Would that be the word? Or, like, resonate with. But philosophy, in terms of, like, the traditional, you know, the philosophy we're talking about here, is very capable of just like even when you haven't read through a ton of it, you can read 2 philosophy books back to back, and both them will have an extremely profound impact on you. And that's why I find the subject to be so enthralling, just because of like it really can change your life every single day. And also, and this is the most cliche thing to say about philosophy, like it does teach you how to think, and I think that's a very valuable thing, especially in today's landscape. There's a video coming out next week that on media literacy, but media literacy from a different sense, not the new sense, but in speaking in the new sense of like all the misinformation going around today. I think that's why philosophy is even more important, because like that's a huge thing now, you know. If it's not obvious already, I just want to cut into this discussion with talking about the painting real quick. So the other day when I tried to do Tree Man from the Green Knight, I messed him up significantly. And it was the worst thing ever, and I don't want to talk about it again. I know that I am talking about it again, and it's fully in my power to not bring it up again, and I just did. That's the last time. So speaking about Tree Man again, I didn't like how it came out, but like when I was editing it, there was like a solid 3 minutes in there when I was doing like a normal human face where I was like, wait, that was good. So I'm trying that again. I think part of the reason that I thought it was so good, and this happens a lot with art, is when you do a sketch, it looks great, and then when you go in and really render things, it doesn't. And that's because like your brain fills in, you know, like right now with this face, all of our brains are filling it in with the best possible outcome. You know, even though this is just rough lines, you can kind of see the face in there, and like your brain will assume the rest. So it's always gonna look pretty good when it's a sketch. As I fill things in, and your brain is gonna slowly go from like, oh wow, this is going in a really great direction, to like, ooh, oh, ouch, yuck, ooh, oh, is he, uh-oh. Like that kind of thing, that's what's happening next. But enjoy it while it's still good. I'm jokes aside, I think I might actually be able to make this look a little bit better, and you know, in keeping with the spirit of trying some more ambitious things, I do want to give it a shot. But where was I with philosophy? Existentialism. It was my entry point into philosophy with Camus, Nietzsche, around the same time, right? I know Kierkegaard is I think he's called the father of existentialism, maybe the godfather of existentialism. I think it's interesting how a lot of the time these people get these labels, and it's never simple. You know what I mean? Like, Osamu Tezuka is called the godfather of manga, which is Japanese comics. Why? Why not just the father? Why not the god? Why not the grandfather? Like, why the godfather? I don't know my godfather that well even. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, I don't know, maybe that means something different to like the people that made up the term, but like, I don't know. I'm very confused about that. But I think Kierkegaard's referred to the godfather of existentialism. And I should say, right off the bat here, as much as I had my kind of first foray into philosophy with existentialism, I am not the most educated when it comes to it. I know a good bit of Camus. Like, I'd say I have his stuff down like pretty well. I know, like, I'd say a decent amount of Nietzsche, not a ton, but like also not nothing. When it comes to Kierkegaard, I know nothing. I'm actually doing this year, I'm doing kind of a not a deep dive, because it's definitely not a deep dive. I'm just trying to get it right this year in terms of like doing philosophical reading like in a straight line, because I'm sure other people, if you read a lot of philosophy or just books in general, or I think anyone with like movies, TV could probably relate to this even. Like sometimes when you get into something, you just jump in at the point you're most interested in, and then you realize, oh, I had to like go there first. Oh, I had to do that first. And that's kind of what happened with me with philosophy. So I'm going back. I had like only a baseline level of knowledge for Plato. So I'm going back and reading a bunch of Plato. Right now, I'm about halfway through all his work. And that's why actually my last video my first video of 2025 was on all the books I read, and I lied in the thumbnail, which I admitted in the description. If you didn't know, I did not read 100 books. And like, the reason why I didn't read as much books this year is because I read almost all of Plato. Like I'm about, like I said, a little over halfway through all his works, but like I can't count it as a full book because I never finished it. So that's why the list was less impressive this year, and I had to clickbait even harder than last year. But I mean, also I'm playing the game, you know what I mean? I kind of have to. What am I gonna do? Be like, I don't even remember how many books I read. Like, I read 51 and a half books this year, and these top 5 were my favorite. Like, no. Everyone would be like, who's this guy with his barely impressive number of books? That's not fair, you know? But now I'm going back, I'm reading through Plato. I kind of not hate, but like, I'm not a big fan of the Plato stuff, the Aristotle stuff. I mean, like, it's good, and like, you know, it's Plato for a reason. I completely understand why this is the most influential writer probably of all time. I mean, I know like some might say Shakespeare, but like, come on, like it's Plato. You know what I mean? Like he's up there, if not the guy, you know? So I completely understand how, but I think part of the issue for me is like, since we're at this point now where like Plato's ideas are synonymous with just like culture. Like Plato and Aristotle kind of just like made our world in a large part. I mean, I'm definitely simplifying things here, but like I would argue that there's like a genuine case that they are the closest things to like the guys who built the earth right now of how everything functions. And because so much of political philosophy comes from Plato, and then so much of that comes from Aristotle, and everyone's responding to Plato and Aristotle. There's that famous quote where it's like, all of philosophy is just footnotes to Plato. That's incredibly true. It is. And Aristotle is probably the second most impactful philosopher, and all of his work is just annoyingly responding to Plato. As much as I do appreciate Plato and find him annoying to read, but like I still get it, Aristotle I don't appreciate that much. I'm not a huge Aristotle fan. I find him to be very annoying. Like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of his work when I'm reading it, and I haven't read it since I was a little bit younger now, so I want to go back. I'm probably going to go into Aristotle right after Plato, but I feel like a lot of his work to me comes off very much just as like, Plato, my teacher, says this, and I disagree because I do, and he's my teacher and I don't like him. I get that vibe a lot, and I really don't like him because of that. But yeah, that's a sidebar there. But I find them both kind of annoying to read because like they've influenced so much of philosophy that like if I were to run through about like, you know, just like some baseline Plato, his ideas on like religion, justice, some ethics, like just some like normal Plato stuff, everyone watching would just be like, oh, so he's just stating like, he's just like talking about the laws. Like he's just like going into like how society's set up. Same with Aristotle too. I'd say like it's kind of a mix of them. Obviously I do understand that like this is a grave oversimplification of how this actually works. But I don't care. I don't like Plato because of that. Or I like him, I just find him annoying to read because of that. Because sometimes it's like I read this 20-page dialogue, get to a conclusion, and the conclusion just like, oh, duh, he said the thing that like my mom told me when I was 5. You know what I mean? So for that reason, I find him to be slightly annoying. But, okay, wait. I'm not going to say anything. I'm looking at the painting right now, and like, I kind of had a moment where I was like, maybe something's going on here. Like, maybe I'm doing something a little better than I thought I was. But I don't think that's true. I think I'm just like coping with the fact that this is not going to be the best. But back to Plato. I'm reading through him because I want to read through a bit of Plato before I get into the rest of like Kierkegaard. I want to go Plato, Aristotle, then I'll probably just jump to Kierkegaard because from my understanding of it, and if there's someone who's actually more educated on philosophy watching this, from my basic understanding of things and the people I've talked to, once you read Plato and Aristotle, like you can mostly go to anything. And I would say that outside of like missing like Nicomachean Ethics or like maybe the Poetics, is that Aristotle too? I think the Poetics is his one on language. Outside of like a couple major Aristotle works, I'd say I probably have a baseline enough understanding, but I want to like really complete them so I can feel qualified enough to go on to everything. I think that's one of the tough parts about self-educating, and which is what I'm doing with philosophy. Essentially, I mean, like, I'd say self-educating is a little high and mighty sounding. I just like reading, but essentially I'm self-educating, and one of the parts that's tough about that is, like, when you're in a classroom learning this stuff, you have a teacher to go, okay, so you read Nicomachean Ethics, you can go directly to this now, which I don't have. And I've thought before about just searching up, like, a good curriculum, like just searching up a school's curriculum, but I don't know, I feel like that's a little bit like then it's almost boring, because I like having the autonomy to, like, read something else that I'm just interested in and go, okay, I don't understand this, I should go read this, this, and this. I kind of like that too, which is why I stay doing it how I do it. But there's pros and cons to it, So I think what I'm going to try and do now that I've laid down some, like, general color blocking is just blend it as if it's, like, makeup. Like, as if you put on some foundation. Have you guys seen those videos of those girls where they're, like, fully color their face with makeup in, like, it almost looks like they're, like, a Warhol painting, and then they just blend it all and it looks amazing? That's what I'm doing right now. And I feel like I have no idea. I've never learned how to paint before this, but logic tells me this is gonna work really well. You know what I mean? Like, just, it feels right. But what I'm doing now is I'm going through all of Plato, and I think it's very annoying because I want to get to more existentialism stuff, but I'm not, don't really, like, that's not really in Plato. You just got to read the Plato to get to the existentialism, so it's a little bit frustrating, but I understand why I'm doing it. It's very necessary at the end of the day. And I do enjoy it because I think Socrates is very fun. I think Socrates is a great character. But getting to existentialism, that was a really long sidebar that basically just said, I don't know that much about this. But getting to existentialism, I think it's true. Like, I agree with the basic premise of existentialism. For, like, the 3 people watching that have for some reason never heard of existentialism, which, like, you have maybe, you just don't know the name of it, because, like, it's, like, the biggest thing ever. Like, I would say it's probably the philosophical movement, you know what I mean? At least the philosophical movement that defines the last, however many years since it's been around. It's basically just the idea that life doesn't have an inherent meaning. That life has, like some people say that life is just, like, totally meaningless and there'll never be a meaning. Others, like Camus, say you got to make your own meaning. He has the famous quote that the purpose of life is just whatever stops you from offing yourself when you wake up in the morning. And I like that quote. And I think the reason that I resonated so much with existentialism... Oh, and there's also... Okay, so this is a tough thing. And I still don't fully understand that. The whole what's going on with this, right? Existentialism is saying life has no meaning. Nihilism is saying that, like, I believe, from what I understand, nihilism is very similar but has a different conclusion. I would say, from what I've read, I don't feel equipped enough to go into a genuine definition of nihilism, because I quite frankly just don't think I'm right. I know they have the same, like, baseline ideas of, like, how they operate, but I know also that I don't know them well enough, so I don't want to say. You know what I mean? Nihilism's a different thing. I'm going to kind of reference Nietzsche a little bit here, because he's definitely been important to me developing my existential thought, because he has some of the same stuff in there, but I do understand there is a difference. I'm just, like, quite frankly not smart enough to understand the exact, like, relationship that these two things have. But anyways, like, 18th sidebar done. I think existentialism really resonated with me because it was something that, like, I definitely understood. Because I think, like understood, not in terms of, like, I read it and it was easy to read, even though I would argue some of it is, like, very easy to read. Like, I think if you want to read philosophy, starting with Albert Camus is, like, a good thing to do. Like, he's a pretty easy guy to understand what he's writing, what he's saying. He also has a significant, like, it makes it sound like he's an influencer, but he does have something of an online following too. I know on the internet, people do like Albert Camus quite a bit. So because of that, I would say, like, maybe you can find more guides and stuff on him, you know what I mean? But, like, it was easy for me to understand because it was almost something I'd always thought. I just never had the ability to put into words the way that like Camus did for me, or the a lot of the breakdown videos that I quite frankly watch on Camus did for me. But once I really got a hold of those things, once I fully started to be able to understand it, I was like, oh, this is kind of what I've been feeling. Because my whole life, and I don't want to make it sound too like dire, because it's really, I don't know, I don't think it is, right? I've kind of had like, not depressive, but like almost waves of a melancholy because of the fact that I was like, what is the point of all this, right? As a kid, it was kind of just like, oh, I'm like upset I have to wake up today and go to school. But like, even in there, I started being like, what is the point of all this? Because like, then I get to summer and I'm just like, I just gotta wake up every day and do the same thing during summer. You know what I mean? And like, I didn't realize what I was feeling was just like the endless toil of like, you have to exist forever. You know what I mean? And that's like kind of one of the big issues of life. And I don't want to get too hefty here. But like one of the big issues of life is it's so much easier to not live a life than it is to live a life. And I don't mean this in the literal sense that like, I know Camus says that offing yourself is an easy thing to do. I understand that he says that. I would never promote such a thing. I understand why he's saying it. He's writing in a book. It's a very different context. This is a YouTube video. I don't want to discuss it like that, right? But I will discuss the fact that like, it's easier just waking up in the morning, right? You woke up this morning. If you're watching this, if you're not, explain, please. That's interesting. But like, you woke up this morning and it was 10 times easier to just lay in bed and keep just like, whether it's doom scroll or just stare at the ceiling or just close your eyes and try and sleep the day away. It is objectively easier to do that than it is to get out of bed and, whether it's go to work, go to school, whatever you have in the day, you dread a portion of your day. Like everyone does. So it's so much easier to not, you know what I mean? Like it's so much, it would be, the easy way out is 100% to just sit and exist, And that's kind of the weird thing about life, right? Is like we're told we should love it so much, but it's so much easier to abstain from that, It's almost like, do you guys, I don't know, wait, so this is a thing in New York. In New York, we'd have state testing every year, when I was younger, and like you could either just you could do it or you could just not do it and opt out, and there was no punishment for not doing it, right? And like that's kind of how life is sometimes. It's like it's so much easier to just beg your parents to opt out than it is to go and do the state test. Because I mean, obviously society has created punishments for abstaining at this point. Maybe because they realized how easy it was to abstain, but it is like it's easier not to live a full life. It's easier not to live a life alone, let alone a full life, I mean, if you're someone who really gets up every day and like does the thing, like you're a real go-getter, that is something that takes so much. That's insane. And that's why Camus says like the most logical thing is to not do that. And I mean, it's a depressing thing for sure, but he's right. And I, as a kid, was definitely like implicitly understood that. Again, the way that I started this off saying like a lot of us understand that existentialism has a real nature to it, whether we consider ourselves existentialists or not. Like, I feel like that's kind of what I understood as a kid is like, this is like a lot. This is a lot of work. And there's no, there's no like prize at the end of this, because, and that's where like existentialism still gets to me now. Obviously, I've understood the fact that like I've dealt with the thing I dealt with as a kid of like, I'm gonna have to wake up tomorrow and do this again. Now, I'm an adult. I don't really deal with that much anymore, fortunately. But like, there's still the question of like, let's say you do it. Let's say you wake up and you go get every day. Let's say you have that impact you want to have. You get that dream job. Then what? So many people tell you that like family is the purpose of life. Of like, you want to have a good family. You want to raise some kids. Understandable, but also like, then like, what if that's not good? What if you get there and that wasn't for you? Because some people it's not. And then like what if you're even, let's say you make that impact you want to make in life. It's only till someone comes and undoes it, you know what I mean? Or, you know, maybe it wasn't quite as good as it was. Or also, like, what if you work so hard for something and it turns out you can't accomplish it? Like, all these thoughts do get to me. And I think a big one for me is, like, does come in the form of, like, this stuff that I do here, you know? Like, I do, as much as I am fortunate for every single person that watches, and I really love making things regardless of the audience. Obviously, I'm here making these every day. I want to eventually be successful with painting, with YouTube, with writing, with, you know, all the stuff I do creatively. What if, like, I get to that point of success and it's like, it's not what I thought it was, you know? Nothing is as good as it seems, it feels like. So, like, what's the point of doing anything, you know? And that's where it's like, this is definitely something that, like, and I would never say I'm depressed because I don't have depression. And I think it's important to, like, make that clarification for a lot of people because, like, I think that word gets thrown around a lot. And as someone who's known a lot of people who do unfortunately suffer from that, it's not the same. Having a day where you're in a funk once a week or once every other week, nowhere near the same as being clinically depressed. And I just think it's important to point that out because, like, it gets thrown around so much that many people do think it's the same. Like, so, like, the once a day a week that I do feel like this, and it's like, what's the point? Why do this? Usually it stems from me being tired, to be honest, which is weird. I don't know what that is. I think it also could stem from my raging caffeine addiction that I do want to do something about eventually. There's probably going to be, because I'm going to quit caffeine, like, soon, and by soon I mean hopefully in 2025, maybe in 2026. There's gonna be, like, a string of at least 10 episodes where I am very angry and upset. Just fair warning, if you subscribe, if you're here for the long run, if you want to see Paint and Talk to its conclusion, there will be an arc of me, like, maybe silent for a couple episodes. We'll see how bad it is. But I know when I'm tired, I can't do anything. I can't function. So I can't even imagine how it's going to be when I'm quitting caffeine and I'm tired. Hopefully it's better after, though. Hopefully I'm even better after that. That's the goal. Because I do need to quit that. I understand that's probably dragging down my, like, mental health, along with just how I act every day, is being addicted to caffeine. But, you know, that's where, because I've definitely had, like, a depressive wave or an existential, like, you know, day where it's like, what is the point of doing this today? Why shouldn't I just lay in bed? Why shouldn't I just rot away? You know, that kind of thing, like bed rotting. And the conclusion I have always come to is, like, the exact Albert Camus quote, and that's why I think he's stuck with me so much. I have friends who are really into philosophy, and they make fun of me for liking him so much because they're like, you know, like, existentialism is edgy, or, like, TikTok philosopher, you know, whatever they'll say. But the reason I will always love Camus, two reasons. One, The Myth of Sisyphus is, like, the best thing ever written. I don't care. Same with The Fall and the Stranger. He's a genius. He is, right? Two, though, where he says, like, the meaning of life is whatever stops you from offing yourself today. I think that's so true. Because he's right about one thing. It's easier to abstain from life than it is to live life. And he's right about another thing, that, like, there is no inherent meaning. You got to make your own. And I think it's so true of, like, your impact will never be certain. Your happiness will never be certain. Your family will never be certain. You know, you can work towards these goals and they might really not work out. Your life there is a genuine chance that all of us take when we wake up and do our things every day. There's a genuine chance that your life is, like, kind of more or less, this sounds so ugly to say, but, like, there's a chance that all of our lives are for nothing. Whether we fail, whether it's because we choose to make them for nothing, like, there's a full chance that happens. And I think it's so important for me, that quote, because it's like, that doesn't matter, though, because if you try so hard to make your life into this giant thing, then so often you'll end up sad, you'll end up disappointed, and all that matters is that thing that you have that stops you from, you know, abstaining from life itself. And I think that is a very I don't know. I think it's such a powerful message. I know people consider existentialism to be one of the saddest things. Or I know Camus is technically an absurdist, I believe. Either way, same difference to me. I really don't. I'm not smart enough to understand the whole thing going on there. But like, I think that like people call it all so sad. I think it's like a genuinely amazing thing, because it's like there is no pressure. It is what you decide to make it. There is no such thing as a failure, because you already succeeded making it through the bad day. You've succeeded doing what you love, or not, or making time to do what you love. For me, I know that the reason that I stay around in life is like art, you know what I mean? And I don't mean to say this in the term of like I've ever seriously thought about not staying around in life. I feel like this might get too depressing if I start going down that road too much. But there's a very real edge to this, that like art is the reason I wake up every day. I look forward to painting in front of everyone. I look forward to writing, editing the video, or even just consuming art. Like I'm watching Twin Peaks right now, and that's like a reason to get up every day. You know what I mean? And I think it's important that all of us have those things, because you are a success as long as you do the things you love. That's all it takes. And we're in such a fortunate age where the things you love are like directly at your fingertips. You don't have to get up and go see a movie. You don't have to like do all these things. For me, in my case, I don't have to go to the theater to see a movie. I can sit on my phone and watch and like have something to there, you know what I mean? And I think that's awesome. I think it's a really, I think it makes things so much happier when you realize that like you've made it through 100% of your bad days. And as much as life might not have a meaning, and probably doesn't, that doesn't matter, because you don't need a meaning to you don't need a meaning to be a success. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's almost, and I don't know if Camus ever asked this question, but I feel like almost the question it makes me ask is like, why did we ever think life needed a meaning? You know what I mean? I think maybe it's because religion definitely for a while like put us into the headspace of like the meaning of life is the afterlife and all these things. I think that's probably why we think life has to have a meaning, but more so like I think someone should say the point of life is not to have a meaning. The point of life is to just be happy. I think that's also the most common answer to what people think life's meaning is. I do think that. I'm pretty sure that I saw that somewhere, that's the most common thing people say. And it's true. Just be happy. Just like do what you love. Don't compromise. Do it unapologetically and be yourself. And I think that you have life's meaning down. Or at least that's my answer for now. And by the time that you watch this, I'll probably have a different one. That doesn't matter because we finished today's painting, guys. That was a lot of a conversation. I hope that that wasn't too much. I think that I wanted to kind of have that be a little bit lighter, to be honest. I hope it doesn't come off like I am overly depressed or anything like that, because I'm certainly not. And I totally do view existentialism and which is kind of what I'm an existentialist, kind of a cringy thing to say, but I would consider myself that. And I do wholly view this as a very happy, positive thing. But the painting is done. I painted a black background as if it's a head emerging from the shadows. Oh my god, wait, what am I gonna do about this eye? Guys, the painting's not done. Okay, wait, I don't know. I never had a plan for this eye. I guess should I try and paint it in white? I don't know, I'll do that as we wrap up here though. I think it came out good. I was planning from the jump to do this black background and have it emerging from the shadows. Kind of, I don't know if you guys know who Eternity from Marvel Comics is. Search him up if you don't. That's what I was kind of going for here. Because I have a poster of him, and I think he's really cool. Okay, the eye is white. I mean, it looks just as bad as it did before, but at least it's something. Overall, what do I think about this? So I wanted it to look like Eternity, but I kind of wanted to go, Eternity is this giant space guy, and what if it was just a head coming out of a shadow instead? That's kind of what I was going for there. Honestly, I think it looks good in terms of you know what this is, and it's much more ambitious than anything I've tried. So I think it's improvement. Do I think it's good? Not in a million years. The blending's really bad everywhere. I will say I think I have the general form of the face more or less there. I think that you can tell it's a face. I'm not precise. There's two things I mainly need to work on. A, blending. I don't know how to blend. Like, see this, how it's blended fairly smoothly? That's great. I don't know why this doesn't blend like that. I need to work on that. Two is the precision with the brush. I think if I could blend and make my brush strokes more precise, totally this could have been a really great painting. But yeah, we've improved. I think this is a win overall. You guys know the drill. Go check it out over on the Instagram. It'll be up there within a day. And that was just to make it look more like eternity. I don't think it really changed much. But it'll be up there within the day, the full finished painting. And I hope you guys got something out of today's episode. And take a walk after that. Yeah, go take a walk.